Hello and welcome back to the next episode of this Healthy Life podcast. I'm very excited for my guest today. I have my dear friend Ivonne Oquendo, and Ivonne was born and raised in Puerto Rico, and she is a certified vibrational sound therapist. She also uses sound to help people achieve balance in their health and chronic conditions. As a trauma-informed survivor of mast cell activation syndrome, mold toxicity, breast implant illness, and chronic Lyme, she integrates somatic practices and brain retraining in her healing sessions, in workshops, and group classes. Yvonne, welcome. So happy to have you here today.
Thank you.
And finally have you as a guest on my podcast.
Thank you, Erica. I am so grateful that you invited me. And yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah. Excited to chat and see what's going on
Yeah.
and have you share all your wisdom from your own personal journey.
Yeah.
So I'd love to start there. I mean, you've been on quite the healing journey.
I know.
So many things that you've dealt with that just on their own are just incredibly difficult to overcome. So I would love for you to share a little bit about your health journey, some of the conditions you had, and how you're feeling today.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for asking. It's interesting because as you were reading, the bio, I'm like, wow, that's a lot. It's a long list.
It is a long list.
And sometimes I forget because I feel like I've come a long way. But, it's been a long journey. And for me, it's been gradual. Like I didn't get from, being completely healthy to chronic illness overnight. You know what I mean? Like I think it was 2009 when I got bit by a tick. I know that now. I didn't know that then. I mean, it was like, the EM rash, classic bullseye on my leg, went to the dermatologist, and I was sent home with I think it was like a hydrocortisone cream or something like that, and 2 years later, I was just a hot mess, a bunch of symptoms that I didn't know where they were coming from, because otherwise I was a pretty healthy individual, and after that, I moved into a house that had mold, and I didn't know that either. So, it was sort of like a perfect storm, for that created all of these, circumstances where I was exposed to so many environmental toxins and so many toxins coming from, other places in my body. Like I had breast implants, and I had no idea that they were also causing havoc in my body, And so I also, have been diagnosed with like mast cell activation, and it's been a lot. It's been a lot. I, and right off the bat, I want to say to your listeners that there is hope. There is hope, because I know that for me, it hasn't been easy and it's been a lot, but here I am, and I think is achievable, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd love to have you share a little bit more. We've talked a lot about Lyme and mold on my podcast, so I know listeners are starting to be well informed about that if they've listened to a lot of my episodes, but we haven't talked a lot about both mast cell activation syndrome and BII. I'd love for you to share a little bit about each. We can start with mast cell activation, like what is it exactly, and what are symptoms? How does it come on? And if people are wondering if they are dealing with it as well, what are things that they can kind of look for to see if that might be something that's causing some of their health concerns?
Right. So, Erica, a mast cell activation is such a tricky, it's such a tricky diagnosis. And I was actually diagnosed, mine was a clinical diagnosed by a professional who is, well known, Dr. Oh my gosh, what's his name?
Neil Nathan?
Neil.
Yes.
Neil. How could I forget? But see,
I remember when you were on this journey.
Yeah. So Dr. Nathan, diagnosed me, and again, it was a surprise. So mast cell activation is very tricky because, mast cells, they release all different types of mediators and all different types of substances. And so the way that it manifests for me doesn't necessarily manifest, in the same way
for someone else,
in other people.
Exactly.
So it's very hard to diagnose. And I think that for the most part, it comes with like a lot of inflammation in the body because of all the cytokines that are being released by the mast cells. And a lot of people have anaphylactic reactions. I was lucky enough that that was never my case. Mine was a little bit more subtle. Nevertheless, inflammation causes a cascade of other issues.
Yep.
So a lot of inflammatory diseases, and so I think that it's a matter of working with a professional who is well versed on mast cell activation, because it is my understanding that this is something that's just coming to light.
Yep.
Yeah,
I'm starting to hear more and more about it. And
Yeah.
other conditions that they're finding are related to mast cells. And, before, I know like in our community, there's a lot of people with Lyme and mold that are, suffering with mast cell activation, but there's so many other conditions that I'm starting to hear might have a connection to it as well. So I think it's a really kind of understudied, unaware kind of just set of like you said, inflammation and issues going on that are kind of underlying a lot of these other health conditions we're starting to see more of today.
Yeah, it's like yet another kind of like invisible, undiagnosed kind of illness. Is so interesting, this journey, because, I have to say that, if anybody, I just hope that what I'm going to say doesn't really offend anybody in your community. Because it's coming from a place of vulnerability and a place of just honesty and just me sharing my experience, strength, and hope. And that is that, this journey of invisible illness or illnesses that are like difficult to diagnose. There were so many times that, I thought, and I sort of like asked the universe, why didn't I get cancer? Because I, going through like not knowing what's going on with you, it's so damaging, emotionally, not only physically, but also emotionally. And then I thought, at least, and again, please anybody that is listening to this, don't take it in the wrong way. I mean, well, at least cancer, you can, you can diagnose it, and then that part, and it's treatable and it's curable. In these days, a lot of people survive cancer.
And I feel like, I this is something that I had similar thoughts. I think when I had Lyme too, like Lyme, I feel like is just as devastating, if not more, than some cancers. Obviously once you go through treatments and stuff, it's awful as well, but there's so much more compassion that people give you when you have cancer versus when you have one of these other invisible illnesses that, doctors may or may not even believe in it. And like, there's so much like, just bad press and stories out there because of the lack of education on some of these conditions. And it's like, and then it's invisible, so you look fine, and you have good days where you're like, oh, I feel normal, and then you have other days where you're like, I can't get out of bed. And like a lot of people don't see all that, so when they see you and you look fine, it's hard for them to believe why you're sick. So there's not a lot of compassion that unfortunately comes with these really horrific chronic conditions.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of like loneliness that goes with all of that, which is loneliness and loss, which is something that I think not a lot of people talk about in the chronic illness community. There's that emotional aspect of it, and we tend to focus a lot on the supplement or the medication or the treatment or the protocol, and we tend to forget about that emotional component, and the incredible amount of grief that comes with
absolutely
with chronic illness.
Yeah, you kind of have to like grieve your old life, like realize that life is not there anymore, and you're gonna have a new life, and there is hope. There, you can get better. It's just gonna be kind of a new normal that you have to learn to accept and kind of dive into as well.
Right.
So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And so with the mast cell activation, right? It's something that is still work in progress for me. And it affected me more than anything neurologically, and also high sensitivity to foods. And I'm still working on it. And I don't know if I'll ever get rid of it. I don't know if I'll completely heal, but I know that now I have a much, much better life than I did before, even though I have, mast cell activation. I do take a number of supplements, and I also kind of like lowered my resistance to medication, because I was like so resistant to taking medication. I was just like, I don't want any chemicals in my body, blah, 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 And so it came to a point where I had to meet things in the middle and create a balance so that I could have a better quality of life. So, I do take mast cell stabilizers, such as ketotifen and cromolyn. And then I also take, other like more natural supplements like quercetin or Hisdal, things like that. So I found a happy medium, and I still have days that I don't feel that great, but I can honestly say that I have a much better life now. And that also came with my ability to, retrain my brain from that, fight or flight response. And that helped tremendously.
Yeah, I'd love for you to share a little bit more about that. That was actually one of the questions I wanted to talk to you about, is I know you really dove into brain retraining and kind of like resetting your reactions to things, and, being able to like not have so much mast cell activation. So I'd love for you to share what that was like and what that journey was like, and what sorts of benefits you got from brain retraining as well.
Yeah, the benefits have been exponential. I actually, right off the bat, I can tell you that by doing brain retraining, I was able to get rid of like smell sensitivities, which were so intense for me. I mean, I was wearing masks way before Rona, you know what I mean? It's like I was just like really sensitive to smells, and I could pass by someone's house and I could smell like the detergent if they were doing laundry, and God forbid going through the candle aisle somewhere in a store, or it was just really intense. And in 6 months of brain retraining, I was able to completely get rid of it. Now it's more of a choice for me, so now it's like I choose not to have synthetic fragrances, and I choose not to engage in that kind of practice with fragrances, but it's a choice. And I don't feel ill anymore after smelling
That's amazing.
something. So that was one of the things that it helped me with. And it also took me, brain retraining also took me on a very deep exploration of myself, my values, and also who I really am, and what matters most to me. And it was a really interesting journey, because from brain retraining I went into like doing somatic practices, you know, and I realized that there was some really, really deep trauma involved in my, you know, in my journey with chronic health that also I've had to address, you know, with things like EMDR and whatnot. So, so brain retraining, I think, is really, really important for those of us dealing with chronic illness because, you know, we create these neural pathways in our brain, you know, and being chronically ill is a trauma.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a trauma. So, you know, it's a traumatic event. So, you know, all these neural pathways that we are creating that are related to the you know, chronic illness, such as, you know, fear and all of that stuff, all of those neural pathways have to be rewired. They have to be rewired so that we can achieve, you know, more of a rest and digest type of environment for
keep your body
for
kind of
our
more
body to heal,
equilibrium,
you know, because the brain is always going to do what the brain does, which is look for answers, right? And our neurotransmitters are always going to do what our neurotransmitters do. And so, you know, we have to find ways of like working with that so that's where, you know, brain retraining came into play for me. So, and I still do it, a different version of it, but I still do it.
Yeah. Do you do it every day? Is it something that's kind of like part of your daily practice, or do you just do it when you feel like you need a little tune up on some brain work?
Yeah, thanks for asking. You know what? I don't do it every day any longer. I did do it every day for 1 hour for 6 months, comes hell or high water. I was like on it. But now I have found other practices that are more helpful to me, you know, such as somatic work and also like connecting with nature. You know, like I am a big fan of grounding myself and going for walks and just doing, you know, just observing what's around me and looking at things with new eyes and just creating that
new pathways that way.
Yeah, creating that the environment in my brain so that, you know, my brain starts to release that dose chemistry, you know, the you know, the oxytocin, the dopamine, the serotonin, the you know, the epinephrine, all of that good stuff. So I found that in nature and also in like somatic movements such as like dancing or, you know, qigong or things like that. So I don't actively do the brain retraining the way I learned it. Yeah. Any longer.
Okay.
I don't have the need to.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think it's something that's like a tool in the beginning, right? It's not meant to be something that you're going to do every day for the rest of your life.
Right.
It's a tool to get you to the next place, and then you kind of figure out your own way of continuing that healing, or, you know, making it, adapting it to you.
Yeah,
so
making it yours.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you're also a certified vibrational sound therapist, I've had the pleasure of having a few of your healing sound sessions, and they're so amazing. So I'd love for you to share what that journey was like and share a little bit about sound healing and how that has been helpful in your healing journey.
Yeah, thank you. You know, sound, music has always been has always had a presence in my life. You know, ever since I was a little girl, music always moved me, and music always made me feel a certain kind of way that I really, really enjoy. And so when I started to have all these like sensitivities to sound was one of them. And so, you know, music stopped for a while for me. And I was able to, I remember that, you know, in my journey, I was I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I was exposed to, to sounds from a crystal singing bowl, sounds from a Himalayan bowl, and I was able to tolerate that. And I was like, wait a minute, there's something to say about this. And so I started to, do a little bit of research on it. And then, next thing I know, I went down the rabbit hole of getting certified and all of that. And it's been like amazing, it's helped me so much. And that's why I am so excited about sharing it with other people, because I know that it can help others as well. And, sound therapy is about like creating, an environment where your body is going to be in a state where it's going to heal itself. It's about creating that state so that your body is able to heal itself, right? And so, specifically, vibrational sound therapy, is a treatment that I do on the body with therapeutic bowls, and they work at a cellular level. And so, it's profound, it's deep.
Yeah.
And so these vibrations and these specific, frequencies, they create that environment that we're talking about. And so you start to release all those good neurotransmitters, and your body starts to heal itself.
And it puts you into like a more relaxed kind of healing state too, instead of being so frazzled. It just kind of brings you down so your body can do a lot of the healing work that it's so good at doing on its own too.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, because I don't heal anybody. I don't heal you. Yeah. It's like you heal yourself, but I can create
the environment
to facilitate that, right? And a lot of my work also is intuitive. I come from like a line of like, mystics and intuitives, and my father was a medium and whatnot, right? So I use my intuition a lot to work with clients, in the sense that I can already, after having a little conversation with you or interviewing you a little bit before a session, I already know where to go. I already know what we need to do.
And it's almost like you knew what my next question was going to be, because I was actually going to ask you, how do you prepare like personally and like for your clients? Like, do you use your intuition, or do you have them fill out something that you kind of like have like a health history on them, or like what's the best way? Because you also have to protect your own energy, right? Especially when you're doing this kind of work. So what are ways that you use your intuition and kind of that guides you into
I'm loving because we've always had that witchy connection, it always happens that way, right? So I prepare by grounding myself. Basically, I just ground myself. I spend time, if I can, before a session. I spend time in nature if I can. I go for a walk, and I do a little bit of work on myself in terms of, opening my heart, right? And listening to whatever guidance, and being open to that guidance that is being offered to me by my ancestors and by my guides and all of that. And then I'm ready. Then after a session, I usually, do a ritual, and my ritual, which is a very simple one after I do a session for a client, is simply just washing my hands with cold water, like right away, and just feeling that cold water in my hands, right? It brings me back to the present moment. It brings me back to me. And then that ritual of like washing my hands is sort of like a cleansing kind of thing, so that nothing sticks to me what's not mine. So that's how I work with that.
Awesome. And then so if someone comes to you for a healing session, can you explain kind of what they can expect and what the treatment is like and how they'll feel like afterwards, and just kind of all the good stuff of what to expect on a sound therapy treatment?
So I work on the body or outside of the body, in your energetic field, depending on what I get, right? And then you come into my studio, which is a beautiful space in my house. And, we do a little bit of an interview, and I kind of like start to sense, like I said before, a little bit of what's going on. And then all you have to do is just like lay down and let it happen. A lot of people fall asleep. A lot of people feel re-energized. Other people, tell me, oh my God, I slept so good, last night after the session, or I just feel so much more like relaxed and re-energized to take on the world. And it depends on what's going on with you. There could be, so many like wonderful things that happen, all positive. I've also had people who have emotional releases, which are always welcome. And so I'm able to hold space for that.
That's great.
So, yeah.
And then how long is a session generally? About 60 minutes?
Generally,
or do you ever do sessions longer?
45 to 60,
okay.
Again, depending on what we're working with, for privates, but I also do group sessions, and I also do events, special events and things like that. For special events and group sessions, I use more of, what everybody pretty much knows about sound healing, the crystal bowls, and I use gongs and didgeridoos and, drums and things like that.
Different sounds.
Right, different sounds. And then for, when I do one-on-one, I use either or I use both, on the body and outside of the body. So
awesome.
Yeah.
And then you've been practicing for about 2 years now in the sound medicine world, right? I think it's
going to be 3.
Is it 3 years?
Yeah, it's going to be 3.
It's been a
I know,
it's been a while.
you helped me at the beginning.
Yes,
you were like
when you were in your training, and I got to
you were my model.
be the recipient of your tests, which was such a great deal.
Yeah.
So I'd love for you to hear, you've been doing this for a couple of years now. What are some amazing success stories that you've seen, other than your own journey, which we talked about, but just in some of your clients that you've worked with that have come to you for sound therapy healing? Like, what's been some big shifts that they've had?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's really easy to get hooked
on
sound healing.
It totally
is. Especially on vibrational sound therapy, very easy to get hooked. And like I mentioned before, it's really great to regulate sleep. So I've had people that, really, really, when they feel like, they're having, like an insomnia kind of attack, for a week, they come to me and they're like, let's do that, please, because I can't sleep. And so, their sleep gets regulated. And also people that are struggling with anxiety, I've had clients that are that benefit so much, and they're just like so amazed that something so quote unquote simple can really make such a big difference, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then so if someone wants to start on their sound therapy journey, so I'd like to talk about both sides. So one being kind of like the client, right? Like if you're looking for someone in your area, how do people go about finding someone that's accredited or has gone through the right training that can do work like you if they're not here in the LA area?
Yeah. Great. Thank you for asking that, because anybody can play a singing bowl, anybody can. But, what makes a difference is working with someone who has actually studied the craft, because it works not only does it work at a deeper level, but also, somebody that is educated knows what they're working with. Right? And can use the instruments more intentionally, right? Than just doing a sound bath, which is great too, right? If that's what you want, that's what you need. Okay, more power to you. I do believe in having a certain amount of knowledge to use these tools. And so, I went through several certifications. I'm certified by the Vibrational Sound Association. And I have other certifications as well for sound healing. So, people can find me on Instagram at Sound Medicine LA. And also my website is soundmedicinela.com. And, you can shoot me shoot me an email, shoot me a DM, ask me questions, and I'm happy to help.
Awesome.
And also, I wanted to let your local audience know that if they come to me, reach out, and you've listened to this podcast at the Trail to Health, let me know, and I can give you a good discount.
Yeah, a little trail discount.
Yeah, of course.
Awesome. I think that would be really great. And then, so what sorts of future projects do you have in mind for, growing your sound healing practice? Are you planning to do more workshops or retreats ever? Or are you going to try to keep it local and work more one-on-one with people? Or what's kind of your vision for how to grow your healing?
Yeah, so I'm currently working on that, and I am applying for some grants.
Amazing.
Yeah, because I want to expand my my practice. I want to have a bigger space, where I can provide more of the services, more than just one-on-one. So even though I do groups and everything, but I want to have like my space, my own healing space where I can share that with others. And I'm thinking about like maybe hanging some hammocks and having like that type of aerial sound bath experience,
that could be really fun.
Things like that.
Yeah.
So I have a few ideas under my sleeve.
Awesome.
And also like maybe create with other sound healers and just build a community, really.
Absolutely.
So,
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ivonne. This has been so
thank
great.
you.
And thank you for sharing your journey and your story and how it's evolved and how you're now using your gifts to help people heal as well.
Yeah,
so really
thanks.
amazing to see your growth.
Yeah, it's so good to see
you.
you.
Too. Thank you so much. So we'll go ahead and link to everything, her local website, her Instagram. So if you want to book a session here in Los Angeles, definitely reach out to Ivonne. And if not, reach out anyways and see if she can help you find someone in your area that can help you as well. So thank you again.
Thank you.